Good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. It's for me, it's Sunday morning, February 7th, Super Bowl Sunday. I actually grew up in Orlando, Florida, and Tampa was home for quite a few years. So it's been a fun football season watching watching imported talent take the Bucks to the Super Bowl, which uh, yeah, they weren't really very good last year. So it's uh, hard to say that it wasn't Tom and Gronk that got us there. But anyway, I'm looking forward to a good game. It's been really hyped. Uh, I'll be so disappointed. I mean, the home team. It's never happened before. You know, the home team advantage. Um, a team has never hosted the Super Bowl, and I know you guys, a lot of you guys don't really care. Some of you are converts to American football. Um, Historically, I know a lot of my previous students are still wild about cricket. Um, but anyway, I hope you're enjoying your Sunday anyway. By the time you watch this, it'll likely be Monday. But I'll post it this afternoon as I usually do and open everything up early for those of you that care to get a jump on the week. This week is all about data visualization. There's a typo in the classroom where they mentioned data virtualization, which virtualization and virtual servers and cloud computing and all that's a whole nother discussion. That's a completely separate issue. So it's unfortunate that the university let that get through. But we're going to be talking about visualizing data, taking numbers, which can just be a cloud of information, just, a useless pile of numbers, and actually making sense of it within its context and within relation to other data sources and data points that are related to each other and all those sorts of things. We've all been doing this forever. Everything from, pie charts, line charts, scatter plots, um, all the way to a good roadmap is actually a data visualization. I mean, it's not a picture of the Earth, so it is a visualization of latitude and longitudinal points and elevations and street names and route numbers and things like and boundaries of provinces and counties and states and whatnot that you don't see with your naked eye. So it's a visualization of a lot of different data. So we'll get going here. Let's see. I've got your favorite thing in the entire world, which is a PowerPoint presentation to share. So let's go ahead and start with the first one to get my dates right and everything. Yep, should be Monday, February 8th. Yay, data visualization. And this is week 6, which, like I said, sometimes there's some confusion because they have to insert the residency weekend variably within sections. But we are in our 6th week, heading for the finish line in April. Congratulations, by the way, on completing the residency, getting a credit for all that work. So now we've got to see, there you go. That's not right. It's not week 4. It's week 6. We've got, three or four more data oriented weeks, and then we move into blockchain, which some of you are big into blockchain. I am not, but we'll cover it. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about data fundamentals. We are not going to introduce the literature review because we already did that. Well done. And there is only one week 6 assignment, and it is a discussion board. Okay. Let's see. Data visualization, as I said, it's just taking these numbers. We all know this stuff. It's taking these numbers and putting them within context within the human brain, so that you can understand something. You can't necessarily visualize everything about everything in one visualization. That's sort of The the dream is to put as much information as you can in a single image, but often there are just too many factors to use. You can use shapes and colors and relative size and things like that, but eventually there's only so much you can pack into a given visualization. Uh, there's an article this week. Data visualization techniques are authenticated scientifically as 1,000 times reliable than textual representation. I think it's the allotting. Uh, yeah, it's the allotting by R and Python article. Um, there's kind of an Easter egg. I'll give you an Easter egg in there for uh, find what's wrong with that article. Um, and we can have a side discussion. What is wrong with the allotting by R and Python article? Besides things like this. So what that is saying is a preposterously clumsy translation of a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Uh, that's that's the problem with auto translate and article spinning. It will say things that are just clumsy, just unprofessional. But as we know, there are many, 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 many examples out there, and scientists, researchers like yourselves are working on new ways to visualize data, maps using different uh, um, um, different representations of what's going on geographically with the people that live in a certain place, or the environment of a certain area as compared to something else. So you get everything from maps, simple, and then you got VR, interactive, virtual reality, where you can actually immerse yourself in a data environment and move things around and interact with the data visually and almost viscerally. They're just um, sky's the limit with the way we present data to the human mind so that it makes more sense. I put a couple of videos into the classroom from YouTube. If you're going to do anything with data visualization, if you're already in this, I'm sure you've already heard of these two folks. But familiarize yourself with Gestalt principles. It's the psychology of visual perception, which uh, plays heavily in what we're talking about here. And then there are a few people, including Mr. Few, Stephen Few, and Edward Tuft, that have done a lot of work with visualization and its effectiveness. And they form, especially Tuft and Gestalt, form the baseline of um, visualization research, which, as you know, way more worried about the research than the practice of these things, and getting you guys to understand there's a difference. The big difference between the practice of something and the research that informs that practice. I'm trying to get you guys to focus more on research and less on practice. There are a lot of visualization tools out there. Microsoft Excel does data visualization. Of course, you got R and Python, which have visualization libraries. I'm not an R programmer. I'm an amateur Python practitioner, Seaborn and Matplotlib, but there are others out there in the SciPy stack that let you visualize certain types of data. But on the kind of the more generic side of things, you got Power BI and Tableau seem to be the two corporate level visualization, dashboards, business intelligence sort of um, solutions out there. I had thought I wanted to learn on. I know each of them just barely. You know, what I mean, just enough to play around with them. But I'd like to know more. I was going to continue learning more about Tableau, but I think I'm going to make the switch to Power BI, which, as you'll find in the instructions, we can talk about R and Python, but there's so much out there on the internet, and your answers are going to look just like previous sections when it comes to addressing the instructions. I would love to see an additional section that is more authentic and more genuine from yourself. What is your experience with visualization tools? Once you do the instructions, move on. Let's talk a little bit more about these visualization tools and visualization techniques and things. Um, but interactive visualizations where you can actually, like, hover your mouse pointer over something and drill into the data. That is getting to be more of a more and more important of a it's a self-service, so you can present a dashboard to an executive and give them the macro level information, but then if they care to do a deep dive, they can start clicking on things and bringing up more detail. I just watched, if you haven't seen it, it's an interesting user interface. There's a lot of things that are wrong with it, but it was an interesting movie, Minority Report, with Tom Cruise, where he interacts with data using his fancy gloves, moving things around and drawing in, and then the way they do targeted advertising individually to you as you're walking, like, through the metro station. That's coming, I think, or something very close to it. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting examination of our profession, by Hollywood. Of course, flawed as all science fiction is, but it's still interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to just show a couple of different visualizations, just as food for thought for the discussion, maybe. Um, One visualization I saw misrepresented, and we all see visualizations. If you watch the news, you see visualizations all the time. Um, the the first one was USA Today. You don't see very many print newspapers at all anymore, but USA Today, starting about 30 years ago, maybe a little more, was very graph heavy. Used to try and make sense of the world for you in graphics, and now you see them everywhere, on the news. And some can be very misleading. So you got to know what you're looking at as a consumer of this information. You have to have information literacy and know what you're looking at. So, for example, from 2016, we have the results of our presidential election, right? And as we all know, President Trump won. So here is, you know, the red. This is by county. Each one of these, where you can see the difference between red and blue. They're all counties within each state, or province. I think they're called um, in Louisiana. They call them. Uh, it's what the Catholic Church uses. Starts with a P. Parish. Yeah. I think they're individual parishes in Louisiana. But anyway, so this was represented. I saw this represented as the overwhelming red wave. So obviously, if you look at the amount of red versus blue on this map, Trump got more votes, right? Well, as we know, that's not true, because if you overlay, this is actually also a population map. This is where you can see in the Northeast, the Baltimore, Boston, DC, Portland, Maine, New York City. These are the population centers. Down in Florida, there's, Orlando and Tampa and Miami. These are the population centers. There's, the county smack in the middle of Dallas, Texas. You got LA, San Francisco. These are where people live. So of course, the a county that has, 10 times the population density is going to have more sway. Like I said, here in Illinois, you can see Chicago clinging to Lake Michigan. Of course, they're going to hold more sway because we don't vote uh, by square mile of land. We vote by people, kind of. So as we know, the Clinton won the popular vote, but lost the election due to the Electoral College, which is a whole nother thing if you care to look into about U.S. politics. It doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody gets more votes that they get the election. Um, so this was touted as there were only 18 counties or something to that effect where Hillary Clinton won a majority, but they just happened to be the 18 counties where everybody lives. So yeah, be careful. Watch out for visualizations, and they can be misleading. There's all kinds of, if you want to avoid, if you're doing a visualization, if you're making graphs, for people, there's all kinds of um, videos and tutorials out there to avoid misleading graphs. One thing is interesting is that from a software usability standpoint, web development, this is an eyeball tracker that registers where people look when a web page comes up. Bam, the first 5 seconds. Um, and this is in the U.S. where the reading is left to right. U.S. UK. Um, I know the Arab world reads right to left. There are lots of languages that don't read left to right, so that perception is going to be different based on um, the geographic location, the culture where you are targeting your information. So it's good to have a multicultural approach to any of this stuff, to make sure that you have an idea of what everyone in your audience might perceive differently. So yeah, the heat map, that red is where the most eyeballs went, and then you can kind of see some faint tracking over here. But everybody, look at it. They go to the pictures. There's almost no eyeballs on these details down here. But bam, upper left corner. That's where everybody starts reading in the English language world. And then it trails off, and then you start seeing heat around the pictures. The images attract the eye more than text, and that's what we're getting at is, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you can visualize information, you'll get it across much more quickly than raw numbers or even text. And then I thought there are many different types of network maps. You can there are network maps that will show you human migration between countries. There are maps that will show you uh, um, internet traffic, where the source of data and the consumer of that data. There are network maps that will show you things like this, which is air routes, which is kind of as you would expect. These are direct air routes. So very few, flying directly from, say, South America all the way to Australia, but they're out there. Lots and lots and lots from the population centers in Europe and Asia, um, and the U.S. back and forth and between each other. Um, I believe this is going to be the larger cities in the Middle East, Amman and Dubai and whatnot. Lots of flights out of United Arab Emirates, as we know, and then major cities within India. And then, of course, you got all these giant bubbles over here in the U.S. and Canada. But this is just a way to show the number of flights and where they're going. The color is merely uh, uh, longitude. They just they just segmented things between yellow, red, and green and blue. That doesn't. There's no extra information there other than to show in relative terms where the continents are. Although, even though, check this out, even though the continent borders are not drawn, you can see them. There's so many coastal. Everybody likes to live on the coast. Everybody wants a beach house. You can see the outline of these continents. Well, of course, because there's no airports in the ocean. But then look at if you look at Australia, it's not so obvious because there are far fewer cities. Australia is sparsely populated for as much land as they have. Very sparsely populated, a lot like Canada. All right. So yeah, that's a cool visualization. I just wanted to show it. If any of you are Tableau users, shoot me an email if you want to see this this dashboard best practices. I'm not gonna. So as we were saying, Tableau. Okay. Yeah, holler if you want to see this. So this is a dashboard. I wanted to start at the beginning. Just like your car, a dashboard is a single view that lets you know what's going on. They can be done at a couple of different levels, but so this creates urgency to buy. Not necessarily a well-designed dashboard. Yeah, it definitely has an impact. It should drive questions at the very least, if not actions. And it provides the data that makes the viewer look like an expert because they have all the relative data right there at their fingers. And very often you'll see these in three levels, kind of for try different audiences. The strategic level is slower moving, more macro view. Operational, like I said, you could use an operational view maybe as low at like a factory floor, or maybe even like a Walmart where you're running out of stock, particularly in groceries. You know how quickly some things fly off the shelf. We're running low on toilet paper. So you could bring stock out of the back. I know at my local Walmart Supercenter, it's just a beehive of activity, both patrons and employees. So operational level could be like you know, could be inside of a hospital, could be a manufacturing floor that lets you know how items are faring throughout the production cycle. Could be a retail store, could be a chemical plant. Um, Lots of different uses for using a dashboard as an operational viewpoint. Uh, Nuclear power plant. The examples are endless. And then an analytical dashboard is really more about the why things are happening, and the audience for an analytical dashboard is, of course, an analyst, not necessarily a manager. So there we go. So those are categories. Now here's an example of like a sales strategic dashboard. This is something that kind of looks somewhat longer term. Um, Actual expenditures versus budget. Um, how are we doing? We're not up to where we want to be profit. You can see the goal versus the actual here. That putting that line out there is a good visual way to say we are short of our goal or we are past our goal. We're exceeding our goal. And that is exemplified down here where we have on the same line, we have year-to-date revenue and quarterly revenue by sales region. And you can see that everybody is exceeding their revenue goals except the South. What's going on down south? Uh, and not only year to date but quarter to date, they're not doing very well. But this is the difference between this is why you would break year to date versus quarter to date out, because while the West District is doing really well, for the year they're having a horrible quarter, and that is easy to see by both the red color and the fact that they're short of their average production. So that's a strategic dashboard example in Tableau here. Um, Here's an operational dashboard. It's got today's orders, what's going on today, by who's our top customer that we're dealing with, these sorts of things. And then you can see by X and check, we're bad, good, bad, bad, and then today's number. So this is something that's got a little more granularity, something that you might actually do something with. This gives you an idea of what day what are your best sales days. Tuesdays or Thursdays and Saturdays. You may be able to do something with. Let's see. Your how your products are faring. And this is a good example here. I'll conclude my Tableau demo with here's a good example of why we do data visualization. And again, I know you guys have seen all this kind of stuff before, but we want to know, have we gained or lost customers? And which city has grown the fastest? Well, you could present the data to your user and it would answer the question. All you have to do is go across here and do the math in your head. But as we all know, that's you want to capture this in one glimpse. So here's poof. Of course, Austin's doing better. If you go back to the other tab, you'll see in the raw numbers that's true. But this way, it's just easy to see. Austin's on top, Seattle, and then look at the slow decline of Boston. New York had a couple of good years, but then, oh man, between 13 and 14, they dropped off pretty bad. But yeah, Boston's been in slow decline, while Austin, a lot of maybe people are leaving Boston to go to Austin. Anyway, thinking is slow, seeing is fast, right? You don't want to make your audience do the math in their head. That's what the computer's for. That's what visualizations are for. So anyway, guys, that is Tableau. And I'll stop sharing that one and go back to our wonderful PowerPoint and share it. So like I said, email me if you want a copy of that. This week, you just got one discussion question, and I have to leave the instructions out there from the university so that they can compare across sections. But I would beg you guys to keep this discussion board original and real and useful. Okay, both in your original replies, and this is continuing discussion from the residency, right? These discussion boards can be so sterile that they are pointless. They're worthless, and that frustrates me. Some of you may not care, but it frustrates me. So yes, answer the question, provide the code snippets from Python and R, and talk about what you've read and between the two. But then you can have a second section, what I know about visualization, and put it in there. And let's have an actual discussion this week, if you can, if you would please. And as always, questions and concerns, I'm just an email away. I've gotten a couple of questions on grades that were, like 2 or 3 weeks after the grades were posted. Uh, when I post grades, if you've got an issue, holler right away. I don't I don't understand looking at something 2 weeks old and asking a question about it. We've moved on. Okay, so while it's fresh in your mind, while the material is fresh, if you've got a question, email me right away, please. Other than that, I will see everybody in class discussion this week.